So my name is Jacqueline Garrity, and back in August of 2021, I saw this Facebook post about this 90-day experience that was about the unstoppable life that helps someone to get more vision and intentionality in our life. And I thought to myself, I could definitely use more vision and intentionality in my life, and maybe this program will help me get back into shape after menopause, right? So I thought, why not? So I signed up for it, not knowing what to expect. Like all of you, in September of 2021, I walked into this room, and I wish I could say that I knew what I've gotten myself into when I left that day, but I had no idea. I just knew that I could expect some kind of breakthrough experience, like maybe getting back into shape, if I just showed up and did the work. And so I did, but unfortunately, I didn't have the breakthrough that I really wanted. The seeds were planted in the beginning, but for me, I let fear, the things we just talked about, fear and just the lies that I told myself just get in the way. And so here's a little bit about my background so that you can see where I started and how far I've come. I was raised Catholic, and I went to Catholic school, and I was taught that sacrifice and working hard and good deeds was all that mattered in life, and that, just don't expect too much in life so you won't be disappointed. And my mother was like the disciplinarian in the family, and she wasn't a very warm or affectionate person. She just, her love always felt so conditional. She was very angry and unhappy, and she blamed a lot of her unhappiness on my dad. And unfortunately, she was like that for most of my life. And I just remember when I was about 9, I came home and I said to her, I said, there's so many older people in this neighborhood. We should move somewhere where there's more kids. So me and my sister could have friends in the neighborhood. And my mom said to me, she said, you don't need friends. They'll just disappoint you, And so I had all of these things that she would say over and over again about how don't share your personal thoughts, your personal, experiences. Don't talk about who you are. Don't tell anybody about your family because people will just use that against you. And, they just can't be trusted with that kind of information. And so I grew up believing that, right? Because, I didn't know any better. And then there was my dad. He was this totally easygoing guy, athletic. He taught me every sport I know. He, he just taught me to be independent and love the outdoors, and he could fix anything. And I just adored my dad. And unfortunately, he was a functioning alcoholic. And for me, it wasn't anything anyone saw on the outside, but I saw every day at home. And he was like a happy-go-lucky drunk, so he would just be the life of the party until he kind of just passed out. And my parents were just so completely different. My mom never drank, and I just remember in 3rd grade that I was telling my friends that wasn't my real mom, that was my stepmom, because I just couldn't believe that, I always felt like a mother should be loving and caring and just kinder to children. And my mother, her actions and words were anything but loving. And so I just really had a hard time with, the difference between my parents. So then fast forward to my adult life, I just focused on working hard and climbing the corporate ladder. And I became a Christian in my early 20s. And I still believed that good things happened to other people. And that I should just keep my head down, work hard, and really not expect too much from life. So when I was in my mid-30s, I met the male version of my mother. And we dated for 4 months, and I knew he was the one, so we got married. And 7 years ago, I I ended up in the ICU. And I remember that was such a significant Kairos moment for me, because I thought to myself as I was lying in that bed, God really does have a purpose for my life, because he allowed me to live. And I thank God for rescuing me from that very unhappy marriage. But I got my son out of it, and he's amazing, and we just have the best relationship, and he's 16 now. And so that's the good part that I took away from all of that. But one of the first things I had to do in this program was to come to terms with all of that and to understand my enemy and to own my story. And in the first Unstoppable session, I started to understand that the enemy was the lies that I told myself, the shame that I felt about my parents, the shame for my choices, and, just the lies that I continued to believe. And I don't think I ever admitted to anyone that my dad was an alcoholic, because deep down, I felt like if I had been a good enough daughter, that maybe he would have stopped drinking. And I always had this fantasy that he would take me and my sister away, and we would live happily ever after without my mom. But in my first session of Unstoppable, I wrote down my story, and I never shared it. I just felt like it didn't matter. My story didn't matter, and why would I want to share it with anyone, and why would anyone care? But my first breakthrough happened in the beginning of my second Unstoppable session, which was February of 2022. I shared my story for the first time, and I had this incredible experience of just feeling this freedom and this surrender, and really feeling God's love for me for the first time. And I thought I had surrendered my life to Jesus in the past, but what I learned through Unstoppable was that I really didn't believe in my heart that I mattered to God, that God loved me, and that through God all things were possible. And through Unstoppable, in that second session, I started to speak God's truth into my life, and I started to pray expecting answers for the first time in my life. And through Unstoppable, you're going to learn, as Tim talked about, the 5 capitals and creating a why statement. And I learned that there were areas in my life that I neglected, like physical exercise and investing in relationships. And I also learned that the lies that I told myself were preventing me from achieving God's purpose for my life. And I feel like it's impossible to fully answer God's call in your life while embracing the lies of the enemy. So I've had so many incredible breakthroughs in Unstoppable, small ones, big ones, but I think the biggest breakthrough came when I did my first coaching experience. And I realized that we have to be vulnerable with each other, that we need to talk about our weaknesses, our struggles, and our challenges, even if it's hard to do. I heard this pastor once say that you cannot fully live out Jesus' teachings unless you're willing to be vulnerable. And I really understand that now. I really get how, sometimes you just have to talk about these things, and you just have to be genuine and authentic in who you are and not worry if people judge you or, think differently of you. So I'm still a work in progress, but I no longer believe that I don't matter or that I'm too old to make a difference, which I struggled with for the longest time. And I realized that I can use the tools of this program to take small steps every day, that those small steps over time add up to significant change. And one of the biggest changes for me was after Unstoppable, I applied for this job that I never would have applied for, ever. And even up until when I interviewed, I kept thinking, I'm just going to drop out. I'm not going to get this. I'm not going to do it. But I followed through, and I was offered the position, and this was back in September of 2022, and I increased my earnings by 78%. So you can see that I was very underpaid. How? So remember I thought Unstoppable was going to help me get in shape? Well, I didn't tell you that. During that first session of Unstoppable, I went and took the big steps, and I adopted a 4-month-old German Shepherd because I was going to walk her 3 times a day, and I was going to get in shape. Well, in November of 2022, she was 5 pounds overweight. So that didn't work, right? So then I just decided that I had to do something for me. Like I had to find a nutrition and exercise program that was a lifestyle change. You know, and I didn't have to use the excuse anymore that I was too old, or it was menopause, or it was all these things. And so I'm happy to report that in May 2023, she has lost 4 pounds, right? And we're doing great, and we're walking every day, twice a day. And I just really hope that you all just take the time to be vulnerable, to dig in, and that you can experience the same breakthrough that I've experienced through this program.